Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voice by Matt show. My name is Matt Bertho. I'm your host, and I have TJ with me today. And TJ, we were talking a little bit before we started, and I told him I don't know very much about TJ, but I did that on purpose. I know a little bit about TJ's story, but I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you guys kind of what he's all about and his mission. Welcome to the show, TJ.
Matt, thank you for having me. My name is TJ Morris. I am an ordained pastor, which is its own story in of itself. Uh, Used to play drums in heavy metal bands, and now I'm an ordained pastor. And
Bro.
I've got five businesses and two ministries, and I'm located in Eastern Oklahoma. I've got a wife and four kids, and just busted my ass to try and be the light in the world.
Man, dude, I didn't know you're my neighbor. I'm from Kansas, man. Where
Oh,
at? Where at in
so
Oklahoma?
we're near Fort Smith. Our offices are in Spiro, Oklahoma.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to get together at some point.
Yeah, man, I grew up in Ark City, Kansas. So
Oh yeah.
10 miles away from the Oklahoma border. I live in Winfield, Kansas. So, 20 miles away from the border. Yeah, man, I used to wrestle all over Oklahoma. Ponca City,
Oh yeah.
Choctaw, Oklahoma City, Tulsa. Yeah, dude.
That's awesome.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
That's why I love that. We didn't even know that before. Yeah, dude, you're an ordained minister.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened October of last year. And we were talking off air about finding your voice. And 7 years ago, I was in North Texas, north of Dallas. And I've been into preparedness, emergency preparedness my whole life. And I was watching a video by a guy about 10 ways to find water when the world ends or whatever, something stupid like that. And one of the recommendations was if you don't have water, hop your fence and see if you can get some water out of your neighbor's spigot. Well, in Texas, you're just going to get shot in the face if you do that, right? And like all through the Midwest. And so,
True.
yeah, it's 100% going to happen.
Yep.
And so I was telling my wife that, and she said, well, make a video about it. I said, I don't want to. And she said, well, then shut up. And I said, well, I don't
Oh.
want to do that either. So we'll make a video about it. And so I started a little YouTube channel called Bear Independent. And that was 7 years ago and more than 7,000 pieces of content to go. And
Oh, bro.
yeah, I'm been classically diagnosed as a workaholic by three different head docs. So yeah, 7 years, 7,000 pieces of content. And so I started talking about preparedness on camera, and just based upon the way that I grew up and the things that I had seen, I'd been a disaster contractor for FEMA, Federal Emergency Management
Oh,
Agency,
dude.
after Hurricane Katrina, and just the whole concept of the government's not coming to save you. Like
Man.
you need to be able to take care of yourself. And so I started a channel talking about that. And at the same time in my personal life, the father was completely rearranging the building blocks of my life, just utterly destroying me so that he could put me back together again, which there's a minor prophet called Habakkuk or Habakkuk. That's the whole story of Habakkuk is I will
Huh.
smash you into pieces so you will do my stuff, not your stuff. And so
Wow.
that's what was happening to me. And I ended up going from playing drums in satanic heavy metal bands to playing drums in the non-denominational evangelical church, which
Wow.
yeah, unexpected, but
Wow.
yeah, he's way better at chess than I am, and so I started playing drums. But it was cool, Matt, because I would still bring my heavy metal drum set to church.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like two kick drums, three mounted
Yep.
toms, two floor toms, 17 cymbals,
Come
and
on, man.
yeah, for sure, bro.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
and so we're playing your standard, Chris Tomlin stuff and all that,
Yep.
but
Yep.
uh we would always conspire the worship band when we would rehearse our worship leader was a real stickler for playing it just like it's recorded.
Oh, boy.
Okay, but Sunday morning, you can't stop me. And
Nope.
so we'd start playing, me and the other guys in the band, and we'd, increase the tempo between 20 and 50%
Oh,
and really like bang out these songs, man.
I
And
mean, the
so it was
spirit
cool.
moves you. The spirit moves you.
Bro, I'm just a conduit, right?
That's
It
right.
wasn't me. It was the spirit playing the drums. You can yell at him.
Yep.
And so anyway, get reintroduced to the church, and we had it on our hearts, my wife and I, that we really needed to relocate from North Texas to somewhere with a lower population density because cost of living was getting absurd, and more importantly, the quality of life. Like,
Yeah.
my two older kids, we only had two kids at the time. They were starting to quantify their self-worth based upon how much their sneakers cost.
Oh
That
man.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I was like, we're not doing this. We're not playing these games. We need to go somewhere else. And so in 3 years, we destroyed our debt. So we're to this day 100% debt free,
Good
saved
job,
up
man.
enough money to move and buy land cash and continue the preparedness side of things. And so I find myself in Eastern Oklahoma, having relocated here, having no idea what I'm supposed to do with my life.
How old
And
were you then, TJ?
33.
Okay. Big, that's a
33.
big year. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm walking around outside one day, just screaming at the creator of the universe,
Oh
that
yeah.
the audacity that I have, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, listen, I'm an idiot. And if you don't tell me what to do, I can't do it. And if I don't do it, I'll be disobedient. So I need you to tell me what to do, and then I will do it. And anger is one of my superpowers. So I'm just pissed off. I mean, screaming, shaking the pine trees, screaming at the sky.
Oh man.
And clear as a bell, I hear, read my word. And I
Oh.
said, I am. And he said, on camera, you idiot.
Oh.
I said, oh, I didn't sign up for that.
No.
I don't want to do that. I'm nobody. To which he responded, did I stutter? And I said, no, sir, you did not. I will read your word on camera.
Mm.
And so then it's like, well, where do you start? How about in the beginning, dumbass? Okay. So, the YouTube channel developed a new facet to it where we were talking about preparedness and homesteading and now faith as well. And I committed to read every word of the Bible on camera.
Wow,
And
bro.
so in the last 5 years, I've read every word of the New Testament from Matthew chapter 1 through Revelation chapter 22. And then I've read every word of the Old Testament from Genesis chapter 1 all the way through the book of Daniel currently. And I'm on a little sabbatical right now because our fourth child was just born.
Oh, congrats, man.
Thank you. And then we'll be picking up in the book of Hosea here in the near future. And so, and in the process of all of that, talking about finding your voice, the YouTube channel grew from 2,000 people to 200,000 people.
Holy moly.
Yeah, insane. And so, oftentimes, what it's your fears and insecurities that become your stumbling blocks, right?
Yeah.
Like, who am I to read the word on camera? Like,
Wow.
I barely have a grasp of this word as it is.
Wow.
But that's actually your superpower
Yep.
because you become so much more relatable to people. And I
Mhm.
would tell people all the time on camera for years, hey, man, I'm not a pastor. I'm just your brother trying to help you along with this stuff. And about 2.5 years ago, people had started commenting, you may not think you're a pastor, but you're my pastor. You're
Oh,
helping me.
whoa,
Yeah, dude.
dude.
And it was insane the amount of outpouring that we were getting.
Hmm.
A little side note, we had a thing in the description of our YouTube video, a little link called Buy Me a Coffee, and you'd hit that and it would send $3 PayPal to my PayPal account, buy me a coffee. And one of my admins had dropped that in there. It's like, people are asking for a way to support, and okay, whatever. Well, I woke up one morning and I was convicted that I was supposed to start giving away Bibles. And at the time, I had like no money. And by the way, all the money I do have now comes from outside of the ministries. I don't take a dime from the 501c3s. Like I said, I have 5 businesses. They support all the things that I'm doing. And then the ministry work is ministry work. That's how I rightly divide that.
I love that.
And so, well, and it keeps your motivations pure.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to tell you what I think you want to hear so that you'll give me money. I'm going to tell you what I know to be true, whether you give me money or not, because it's not, I don't have to preach at you to get paid. Right. And so I wake up one morning and I price out a case of Bibles, $214.80. And I said, well, I don't have $214.80, but let me pray on that. So I talked to the Father and I said, hey, if you put $214.80 into my hands, I will use it to buy a case of Bibles. Go to sleep. Wake up the next morning. I got an email from PayPal. Somebody had sent $215 to me with a little note that said, I don't know why I'm sending this to you, but you do.
Come on.
I was slayed, bro. Slayed. So I bought a case of Bibles.
Yeah. Okay,
Since
God,
then,
I'm all in. Thank you.
Bro, since then, we have given away more than 7,000 copies of the scriptures.
What?
Just giving them away. You can just go to Grindstone Ministries and just request a free one. We'll send it to you, no questions asked. And like little things like that. If you trust me and you're obedient, I will bless you over and over and over again.
Yep.
And so, and then this past October, I realize I'm bird walking all over this conversation.
Nah, I love it.
But this past October, my pastor came to me and he said, hey, I need to talk to you for a minute, bro. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? I must have stepped in it. And he said, listen, I've been watching you for the last 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And you're ready. I'm like, ready for what? He's like, I want to ordain you as a pastor.
Whoa.
I'm like, hold on. What does that entail? And he said, 98% of it is a confirmation of what you're already doing. You're already reading the word. You're already guiding people. You're already doing these men's retreats where hundreds of people from across North America are showing up and getting baptized. You're already doing all of this stuff. And it's about time that we recognize that. So I want to ordain you. And so it was beautiful. We had a little ceremony with a bunch of people that I love. And he prayed over me and put oil on my forehead and handed me a piece of paper with my name on it that says, you are now an ordained pastor. And I was like,
wow,
cool. And so that's how I got here and found my voice. And I'll tell you one more super quick backstory. Before all this happened, I met my wife 13 years ago, and I was such an angry person because of the hand that life had dealt me.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to anybody.
No.
Nobody. And I was not a good person. I did, if it's bad for you or bad for somebody else, I've done it. And unbeknownst to me, my wife was praying to the Father to please send her somebody that would just talk to her. And we actually, a buddy of mine who worked for me, I was doing power construction, putting up wind turbines. And I was lonely. And he said, hey man, there's this dating website. You should get on there and check it out. And I said, dude, I'm not really interested. He said, just put a profile together, get on there, check it out. So I hop on there, and there's this name, Harmony, that keeps coming up over and over and over again. You're matched with Harmony. And I'm like, what kind of hippie names their kid Harmony, you know? Turns out my awesome mother-in-law. And so I sent her a message, and we started emailing back and forth. And a couple weeks later, she invited me to a family barbecue. I walked into that backyard, Matt, and time stopped.
Oh, man.
And the Father told me, that's your wife. And if my wife 13 years ago hadn't been praying for somebody that would just talk to her, and then I met her, and she helped me heal from the asshole I was into the man that I am now, we wouldn't be where we are now. Man. So like you never know those little turning points in your life, man. Downstream from that, literally life-changing.
You're giving me a lot of hope, TJ. You know, it's it's pretty awesome that what you just did at the beginning of this podcast and the purpose of how did you find your voice, man? Like, yeah, you were called and you listened to the call and you took action, even though it's scary, even though there's no certainty, right? And, I hope that everybody listened and experienced what he just said because, I think we could talk about this because I grew up in the church and I also play the drums, TJ.
Awesome.
Um, but for me, my first dream was being in public school as a teacher because I just love helping people. And, I had a choice when I graduated college to be a salesperson and make money or to help people. And I remember my first spiritual mentor, James Bryan Smith is his name. He's a really famous Christian author in the world. He worked with Richard Foster. He actually has a book series out called The Good and Beautiful God. He has like 4 books in that. But he looked out over the baccalaureate crowd and said, the best thing that you can do in your life is help somebody else. And I knew right then, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be a teacher. I'm not supposed to make any money right now. I'm supposed to be serving and doing what I'm supposed to do with my gifts. And 5 years ago, like I said before the call, when I joined the Arte Syndicate, I told my wife at the time, who's now my ex, I want to be around people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went to the first live event in St. Louis. Stephanie Van Dam turned around and said, hey, did you know that Tony Robbins has a voice coach? And I said, wow, I know why I'm here. I'm going to help business professionals and leaders find and keep and share and connect their voice with craft, artistry, and magic. And here we are. It's a full-time gig now. But I fought TJ for 5 years. I fought God for 5 years, and I was like, nope, I'm not going. And he went, boom, year 1.
Yep.
And then year 2, COVID happened. Now it was a big knockout. Year 3, my dad passed away in June 2020. Year 4, I got labeled a bully because I started holding kids accountable for what they should be doing.
Yep.
And eventually I had to resign last May to go all in on what God was calling me to do a long time ago. So hearing your story, when I say it gives me hope, it gives me hope and encouragement to let me know I did do the right thing eventually. Even though I got broken apart, all of my comfort, everything got broken apart. I still have my 2 sons, Max and Leo. But everything else, the family that I thought I knew, the family I thought I had, bro, It was rough to get to this point with you right now.
And what a show of mercy that he could have utterly destroyed you.
Yep.
And instead escalated as gently as possible to keep your attention to get you to this point.
I know, man.
And I totally get it. I spent a decade in apostasy playing drums in heavy metal bands. He should have killed me on multiple occasions. About 5 times I should have been dead. I'm one of the only people I've ever met that can say with a straight face they've spent more than $1 million on cocaine. That was me.
Crap, TJ.
Yeah. I sold my first business when I was 22 years old. And as a poor kid, I started that company with $700. And in 5 years, I took it from $700 to a $1.4 million valuation.
What was the business, TJ?
I cut trees. That's all I did. That's it.
Where?
Upstate New York.
Okay.
Hustling.
So are you from upstate New York?
I'm born and raised in upstate New York.
Okay.
Ran away about as quick as I could. And I've lived and worked in 38 of the lower 48.
Holy moly, dude.
Yeah. I got a few miles on me, but I started with a $500 Ford Ranger pickup truck and a $200 chainsaw. cutting firewood. And we heated our house with firewood. And so I had to cut firewood anyway. And literally, where our house was at, this was in Bethel, New York, which is now
Yep.
Bethel Woods. The backside of Yasgur's farm, the original Woodstock, adjoined our
Yep.
property.
I know exactly where that area
Yep.
is.
So every summer, the hippies would have a reenactment of Woodstock, and dudes high on shrooms would come wandering out of the woods and end up in my front yard.
Oh
So
boy.
anyway, I'd cut firewood because I needed it. And about cars would drive down that little two-lane county road and stop and say, "Hey, are you selling firewood?" Well, the 10th guy that asked, "Yeah, I'm selling firewood. How much you want? Back your car up over here. I'll fill you up." And so I started cutting firewood, and then I started felling trees, and I learned to climb, and then I started clearing lots and just built it up from there. And until I realized 5 years later, I was no longer the guy doing anything. I was the guy managing all the people doing stuff. And I
Man.
was too immature to find joy and purpose in that. So I
Yeah.
sold it instead. And in hindsight, a lot of people would think like a $1.4 million valuation on a $700 investment in 5 years at the age of 22. What a win, right?
Wow. Wow.
Now, and it was the father's plan that I'd end up where I am today anyway. But had I stuck with that for another 20 years, that might be a $500 million or $1 billion company if I had just kept compounding all of that sunk cost and work ethic to where I am now. But the fact of the matter is, I got bored and I got unmotivated and I decided to sell it rather than keep managing other people who were doing work. And then once I sold it, that funded all of my shenanigans. And so I did a lot of shenanigans for about a decade while waving a middle finger at the creator of the universe. And he
Wow.
very mercifully decided not to kill me, although I deserved it,
Wow.
so that he could preserve me to get to this point. So I understand what you're talking about with that 5 years of just getting punched in the face over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So TJ, you know, I feel like instinct wise, I need to go here because I think, our listeners, you're a very strong man. You've been through a lot. Some of the work that I do with my clients, it's about identifying the way that the way we grew up, right? The way mom handled conflict, the way dad handled conflict. So I'd like to know a little bit about your childhood, the way you grew up, to give some people a little insight of the man that is before me right now.
100%. My mom is one of the best people on planet Earth.
Mm.
She has an absolutely gigantic heart. Super sweet. My dad, who is now passed, was, I think, in hindsight, a good man doing the best that he knew how to do based upon the patterns of behavior that he learned as a kid.
There you go.
That being said, my household growing up was filled with violence on the regular.
Mm.
I mean, one of my earliest memories is being 4 years old and getting thrown down 2 flights of steps for standing in between my mom and my dad, because my dad had it in his head that today he was going to beat the shit out of my mom. And bouncing down 2 flights of steps, landing at the base of the steps, and having my mom come with me, curl up around me, and eat the blows while whispering in my ear, "You're such a good kid. I love you
Man.
so much. You're so strong." And
Mm.
so when I say I grew up with anger issues, I did. I had behavioral issues, bro.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, for sure. And by the time I was 15 years old, I was this size. I was 265 pounds, bench pressing 465
Oh my
pounds.
God.
Yeah, big fella. I had an old man ask me one time, "Do you cut the trees down or just rip them out of the ground?" I said both. And so, and I just always grew up working. I grew up on a farm in upstate New York, and there's
Yep.
always work to do, always heavy things to lift. I'm not built for tap dancing, Matt, but if there's something heavy that needs to get moved, I got your
Got it.
back.
Yeah.
And so by the time I was 15 years old, that all came to a head. And I beat the snot out of my dad, put him in the hospital for weeks, broke several bones, the whole nine. And that was the beginning of the end of that relationship as an adolescent. And then coincidentally, about that same age, 15, is when I really got into heavy metal. And I was approached. I bought a set of drums. I learned how to play the drums. I heard Master of Puppets by Metallica and Cowboys from Hell from Pantera in the same afternoon. I was like, whatever this is me.
Sign me up.
Like, this is heavy metal. Awesome. I'm into metal now. And so I was approached by some dudes about twice my age who were like, hey, we understand you play drums and you're pretty good. You want to jam? Yes, I do. And that began a decade of apostasy for me.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, sex, drugs, and heavy metal, that was me. While also simultaneously building a business, cutting timber and doing power construction and heavy civil construction and traveling the country. And side note, when we started this metal band, all the big bands wouldn't let us get on the bill to play with them. And that really annoyed me. So I took some of the profits from my timber company and I started a production company. And then I started throwing shows and hired them to play my shows. So I got paid for every ticket that they sold.
Oh, that is beautiful.
I like the asymmetric attack. Like, I like the ambush, right? And so many moons later, I was in South Texas on the Kennedy Ranch, which is just south of the King Ranch, where all the leather for the Ford King Ranch Edition trucks comes from. And there was a wind turbine project there called Sarita Gulf Wind. And I was involved in that project, putting up wind turbines there. And my dad was on the road traveling around the country, and he got a hold of me and said, hey, I'm going to be coming through that area. Do you mind if I swing by and, say hello, have a look? I said, sure, I'll get you a hotel room. And so he ended up spending about a week with me in South Texas, in Kingsville, Texas. And some really good stories out of that week that we probably don't have time for. But we were on the job site, which was a 1,600 square mile job site. And one of my equipment operators had called out. And so I was sitting on a dozer, pushing grade, it's all sugar sand down there, just making it smooth and flat. And I'd learned to run a dozer sitting on my dad's lap when I was a kid, because he was in power construction as well. And so I'm running this multi-billion-dollar job site as a young man from the seat of a dozer, with the dozer controls in one hand, a cell phone and a radio in the other, just doing what I do. And my dad sat in his truck for about an hour and watched me just push grade in the dozer. And after an hour, he came walking over to me, climbed up the ladder on the dozer. I said, hey, I got to tell you, I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of what you're doing here.
Man, TJ.
You're doing a good job. You know what you're doing. Your men respect you. High quality of work. You're doing a good job. And I come to find out, I had a conversation with him. We split a 30-pack of Budweiser and we laughed and we cried. And yeah, I come to find out that the man who I thought hung the moon and the stars, my grandpa, used to beat the shit out of my dad every day.
There you go.
And generational curses, brother.
That's right.
And so I watched my dad, who was like the toughest guy I ever knew, sob about the relationship that he had with his father. And that is when the rebuilding started with him. And before he passed, praise the Most High, we had a good, I wouldn't call it great, but we had a good relationship with one another. And so, and one of the things that really helped me, and I'm a big dude, alpha male, bearded, strong, the whole nine. I have a phenomenal friend. His name's Dr. Trevor Wilkins. And he is a specialist in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprogramming. And which it's for trauma. It's trauma therapy.
Yep.
And he said, hey, man, you might consider EMDR for some of the stuff you've been through. I said, yeah, man, sounds good. Thanks. Well, I was having one of those days. I was actually having a season of life, but it all came to a head in one of those days where I thought like a Glock would really taste good. And So rather than eating a Glock, I called a therapist
Yeah, man.
and I scheduled immediately my first EMDR session. For some people, it takes months. For me, it took 2 sessions, 2 sessions of EMDR. And I'm I'm not I'm not perfect, but bro, I don't feel like eating a Glock anymore either.
That's good.
And so to that point, if there's anybody out there within the sound of our voices who thinks like life is stupid, it's meaningless, I have no purpose, it'd be easier to just end it all. Uh my best friend killed himself 25 days ago,
Mm.
and I hate that he's gone. And the world will not be better without you here. And there is help, and you should go get help.
Yeah.
And this actually goes all the way back around to faith. One of the best tools of the enemy is to convince you that there's no purpose and no meaning anyway. This is all pointless. You can't win. There's no way to win. You go the flip side of that to the creator of the universe, who fearfully and wonderfully made you in his image
Mm-hmm.
and knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb.
Mm-hmm.
He made you for a purpose. Each one of us is for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about 5 years of not stepping into your purpose, right? And how many people have you been able to help when you've been actuating in your purpose, doing what you were made to do?
Mm.
And if you remember that, I exist for a reason, even if I don't know what that reason is yet, I promise you, if you ask the Father, he'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
And he will tell you in ways you can understand, even if it takes 5 years of getting punched in the face to figure it out. He will tell you. But there is meaning, there is purpose. You exist for a reason. And so if you're a big, tough, strong guy that can lift heavy things, you should still go see the doc. And you should still look at the blinky lights and do EMDR and talk to somebody.
TJ, that's so good, man. And, my grandfather did not talk about his feelings. I grew up on a farm in Chanute, Kansas with him and my dad. My dad grew up on that farm, and I got to get on the tractor. I got to go to the cow pond down in the woods, down on the bottom, and learn how to shoot, learn how to chase chickens and swing on the tire swing and the rope in the barn with the hay and all that. When I was in high school, my grandfather shot himself in the chest and he committed suicide.
Oof.
And and so my dad didn't talk about it, and he would numb it. He'd drink. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't share his voice. He didn't share his feelings. And about 5 years ago, I got tired of saying I love you to everybody, including my dad, and he wouldn't say it back. And one time on the phone, about 5 years ago, I said, Dad, why don't you say I love you? And you know what he said, TJ? He said, I didn't even know I didn't do that.
Yep.
And then it clicked. He grew up with his dad not showing emotion, not talking to him, just doing things, right? And how did my grandpa get raised? Same way. And so I'm the change to the family tree. And not only my family tree, but tons of adults worldwide, teaching them how to share their voice and how to share their feelings in a healthy way. And so, bro, your story, and I want to say this too, TJ, the way that you are able to listen to people, that's a gift. Because I work with a lot of people, a lot of pros, man. And what you just did with me is what I do with my clients. And I bring it back out and I zoom out and I say, okay, I see what you're saying. This is what you're saying. So I just want to acknowledge that, man. Like that's a gift for you to be able to, for you to be able to listen to people and be able to take story and mold it back into what you're talking about and make it relevant to their life. That's a beautiful gift, man. Like that's,
Thank you.
And I think it's something you've always been able to do. But for you to have that moment with your dad for a week, bro, I got to hear my dad say, I love you for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, he passed away in June 2020 of the Widowmaker heart attack. But, I never got to really talk to him about my grandpa and his suicide. But like knows like, TJ,
Mm-hmm.
you feel very deeply and I feel very deeply. And our emotions, your emotions and my emotions are felt very strongly, right? And it's a responsibility. And
Well,
I'm excited to know you now, but I'm also excited that you have found purpose in those emotions and how to share them in a healthy way.
I think that's why I was so good and still am at times so good at being angry, because anger is just, it has like a numbing effect to it. If I'm seeing red, nothing else matters. I can't feel anything else. If I'm so pissed off, and I'm just going to slaughter people with my bare hands,
Mm.
right? And the other thing that it does is anger covers up weakness,
Yeah.
right? And especially men never want to feel weak at all.
Nope.
And so that's I used to, I could literally feel anger like putting on armor. I could feel when I had it on, and it would be so difficult to take it back off and act rationally again. And that's one of the things that has been a real blessing to me, is just very simply stimulus, pause, then response.
Yeah, man.
And as much space as I can put in that pause, if it's microseconds, if it's a few minutes, if it's a day, if this is really important, if my relationship with this person is really important, I don't need to respond right now.
Yeah, can you
There's
repeat that again for everybody, because it's brilliant. This is what we
absolutely
all need to learn how to do.
stimulus, pause, then response. Right? Whatever that stimulus is, my wife is mad at me because of X, or my dad was a jerk to me, or my boss, or the bank, or pick thing, my kids. Stimulus, pause, then response. Because it's literally not possible for your brain to be emotional and logical at the same time.
What things would you recommend people do for the pause?
So I think it depends a lot on who you are and what you do. For me, because we're both drummers, right? I don't know about you. As far as moments of clarity, I play insane music, 300 to 360 BPM sustained. And so I've got my headphones on, both arms and both legs are going at light speed. And then, and like there's sweat dripping off my forehead into my eyes. And now all of a sudden I can think. It's
Wow.
almost like I have to overwhelm my entire nervous system to get to that point of clarity. And I know some people, the opposite end of that would be like meditation
Yep.
and prayer. That
Yep.
maybe depends on who you are, but and I can't tell you what those things are for you. But if somebody takes the opportunity to reflect on what tools in my toolkit do I have for the pause that are helpful,
Mm-hmm.
use them. Because if your pause is I'm gonna drink a fifth of Jack Daniels and then tell this guy how I really feel, that's not helpful. So the stimulus is outside of our control. The pause and the response is well within our wheelhouse.
Oh, I
I get
love
to
that.
choose. I get to choose how I respond to these things, how much time I'm going to take to respond to these things, and how I'm going to respond to these things. And sometimes, especially if it's he said, she said bullcrap, which I cannot stand, go talk to the person.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I heard XYZ. Is that true or not true? And you know what? 10 out of 10 times, you're going to get a different story than what you heard. And so that's something that for me has been incredibly helpful, is finding that pause, even in the midst of some of the things that we do with our ministries, bro. We do disaster relief and anti-human trafficking. I don't get a lot of time to pause, but if I can take 10 seconds and make the best call in this moment, if we're doing an extraction on somebody and things are going sideways, can I breathe for 3 seconds, oxygenate my brain, understand that it's physiologically impossible to be emotional and logical at the same time, get over the emotion, switch into logical, and then go into course of action 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do 3. All right, guys, let's move. And that's part of why like law enforcement and military, public safety in general, firefighters, EMS, they train protocols over and over and over and
Yeah.
over again to develop the automaticity that when under stress, they don't have to think about it. They just do it.
That's why people take CPR training.
Yep. 100%.
I actually had to save my accompanist's life like 10 years ago. He had the Widowmaker heart attack and he went down, and I started giving him CPR. And boy, as you know, if you've ever been in that situation, when that happens, you just see them. Everything else is like just color, right? And I remember the EMTs had to rip me off of him, and I was like, "You're not gonna die." But I literally felt him die. Like he took his last breath in my hand, right? And then the EMTs came with these magic sticks, put him on his chest, he shocked him, and then he came back to life.
That's amazing.
And I went to the emergency room. This is crazy, TJ. And I went in there and I heard Billy yelling and screaming gibberish, like blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what is that? What is he doing? And this nurse, I'll never forget this, because this really made me go, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like how our spirit is in our body, but our body is not our spirit. Right?
100%.
She said, when you're brought back to life that way, that your speech starts to come back, but it's just gibberish because it's like your computer got reset. And I was like, whoa, what? And then I would tell Billy things. This was in Wichita at Wesley. I would tell Billy things and he would forget. And he texted me like 40 times, "Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for saving my life." And he kept texting it over and over and over. And the nurse, when I went up there, she goes, "Has he been like texting you a lot?" I was like, "Yeah. What is that?" She's like, "Well, his short-term memory, it's not there yet. But his long-term memory is there." And I was just like, this is bizarre. This is incredible. So I just wanted to say that because you triggered me to remember that training, right?
Oh, yeah. And statistically, the fact that he had a rhythm that was shockable, that's not common. So that's uncommon. And so even that was a gift that they could hit him with the paddles on the AED and bring him back around again. Praise the Most High. That's awesome.
Yeah. The doctor took me aside when I was up there and he goes, "Are you the guy that saved his life?" I was like, well, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Did you give him CPR?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you saved his life. And if you wouldn't have kept the oxygen running to his brain, he'd be a vegetable right now."
Yep.
And I remember in that moment, I was just like, what? But you've been in these moments, TJ. I know. I can tell you this, and you're going to get it. When I'm in that zone and I was at the emergency room and I drive his dad up to the hospital, I was just like in superhero mode. And I drove home. Once I got to my house, you're going to love this. I go up to my bathroom and immediately bawled, just cried my eyes out.
So one of our companies is Refuge Medical, and we make badass American-made tactical medicine gear and teach people how to use it. So we've got a training division, Refuge Training.
That's so cool.
Oh, it's a blast, man. We train literally everybody from grandmas to Navy SEALs. It's awesome. So we get to travel the country and teach people what we call the fine art of how to not die. It's a lot of fun. And so we do CPR, we do AED, we do stop the bleed, and then we do force on force tactical medical training. And that's what we call a responder 3 class. And so it's about an 8 to 10 hour day with simunitions, with blue guns, with force on force, fake knives. And so many times, man, because we put people in these immersive scenarios. Like I've been kicked out of more Holiday Inns than I can count because we'll rent Holiday Inn rooms. We'll rent the conference room and then a suite of rooms on like the 6th floor. And there's gunshots in there, fake blood all over the place. And I'm like, it's worth the $169, you know? So anyway, But we have people. What happens is you get auditory exclusion. You can't hear, right?
Yep.
Or you
Yep.
only hear certain things.
Yep.
You get time distension. So either things are moving really slow or super fast.
Yep.
And usually what happens is your computing power goes way up because you're hypersensitized to this external stimulus.
Wow.
So everything feels like it's going slower. And then you get tunnel vision, like you're looking through a paper towel tube. Right. And you get numbness in your extremities. So you lose fine motor skills. So you want coarse motor skills on all the things that you're trained on, which goes back to that automaticity, how to shoot a gun, how to use a tourniquet, how to do
Holy crap.
and so we run people through this over and over and over again. And people after the training, after each iteration in the training, we do a quick AAR, after action report. Here's sustain, improve. You nailed this, you messed up on this, try this next time. And once that adrenaline wears off and it's gone, the whole autonomic nervous system just people will collapse. They'll start crying. Yep. They'll call their loved ones.
Yeah.
Because they walked into this hotel room and there was a body. It's a crisis actor, but there's a body laying on the bed bleeding out, and they saw their wife. Right. And now that, honey, I just got to tell you how much I love you and how much you mean to me. And it's like it becomes a borderline spiritual thing for these people. And even that's a beautiful thing as well. And I've been super blessed that my life has shifted into mission statement, preservation of life. That's what I'm about. Preservation of life. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, the preservation of life. That's what I'm trying to do to the best of my broken ability
TJ,
with all the different things that I've got going on.
Insane to me. Like, bro, we're so connected, and I didn't even know, like, getting into this call with you. I mean, there was a reason why I didn't want to know so much, right? But let me tell you, when I coach people, I coach them on being whole as they can be, right? And so one of the questions that I always ask my clients when they start are 4 of those questions that you just rattled out, like it's part of your makeup. And so when I work with a client, I always ask them, I say, okay, from 1 to 10, 1 is least, 10 is max. Mental, book smart, comprehension, problem solving, intelligence, what's your number? Physical, physique, nutrition, health, fitness, sleep, what's your number? Spiritual, God, universe, energy, whatever you believe, what's your number? Emotional, how do you handle stress, anxiety, depression? And on the other side, how do you show kindness, love, and generosity? And then the last category that you did not say is abundance, life happening for you, gifts, opportunities, etc. And then they give me a number. Based on that number, I can give like a prescription of, okay, this is what we're going to focus on for the next week or so. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at these numbers again. And so for me, and you know this too, in the work that you're doing with people, if I have a client that's functioning mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, abundantly at 8, 9, 10 across the board, how are they going to show up in their voice? Right? They're going to be whole. We're going to feel them. We're going to see what we want them to see. And so I just wanted to tell you that because that's alignment.
So good, bro. I could tell you're good at what you do. That's so good. And maybe the reason there's a lot of overlap between the two of us on that is with what we do with Kaleb House on the restoration side. We put kiddos back together again after they've been trafficked. And we use what's called a wraparound approach. And there's 6 facets: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, educational, and financial. And so those are the 6 things that we got to get these kids back on track with so that they can be a whole person again. So we can break the cycle of this generational curse so that they're no longer a victim. They're an overcomer, so they can go out into the world with their testimony and be the light.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
So I want to just dive into that because I don't want to miss that. Can you talk about that at
Yeah,
all?
I can.
Like, how did
What I
that
can,
start? Like,
I'll tell you how it started. Um, we've talked a lot about and around listening to the creator when he tells you to do something, and the net benefits when you do, and what happens when you're disobedient. So I told you I was mad at the Father one day, screaming at the sky, and he said, "Read my word," and I did. Another time, about 2 years later than that, there was something else I knew that I was supposed to be doing, and I didn't know what it was. And so I again had the audacity to start screaming at him. And I said, "I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing. Just show me what it is." And so at
man,
that time, I was supposed to be having a call with a consulting client who had to push their call. And so I happened to just flip my phone open and start looking at emails, which I don't do emails. We have 4 people on staff that handle emails because we get 10 to 15,000 emails a week. And so each, staff person will go through, prioritize, and then forward to me what I actually need to see. The first email, coincidence, I'm sure, it wasn't the hand of the creator. Coincidence was from a guy by the name of the Reverend Gilbert Abreu with Night Runners Mobile Crisis Response in Florida. And Hurricane Michael had hit the Gulf Coast of Florida and Panama City, Florida. And 5 months later, it was still literally a disaster zone. So he reached out to me to see if I could help shine some light on the works that they were doing with my YouTube channel. He watched the YouTube channel. And I spent 5 minutes with him on the phone. A minute and a half was me praying for him. A minute and a half was him praying for me. And 2 minutes of it was, let's work out the details. Let's work out the logistics. I'm coming.
wow.
So I went to Florida and I told my followers which is a term I don't like, my subscribers on YouTube. Followers makes it sound culty.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I followed you.
But so I told my people on YouTube, I said, "Hey, I'm going to Florida. We're going to go help the Reverend Gilbert Abreu." And I was able to raise $3,000 to go. Rented a minivan. We drove 3,000 miles. There was me and 32 other people. There's 33 people there. We fed 3,000 meals, hot meals to people in
Bro.
3 days. And when I got home, there was still $3,000 in that bank account. To this day, I don't know how that's possible. It's just loaves and fishes. And so then a real good friend of mine, a brother, came up to me after that and he said, "Hey, next time you go to Florida, I want to go with you."
Hmm.
Okay. Well, 6 weeks later, we went back to Florida and did it again. There were literally twice as many people there that time. And I said, I think there's something to this. And I had a background in this, having worked for FEMA after Hurricane Katrina. And I said, I don't want to do this on the governmental side. I want to do it on the nonprofit side because I think we're going to keep doing this. And so monetize your shenanigans. We just filed the appropriate pieces of paper with the appropriate governmental entities. And they said, okay, cool. You're a 501c3 now. Go do whatever you want. All right. So we started Grindstone Ministries, and we've deployed Grindstone Ministries after hurricanes and tornadoes 41 times in the last 4 years at no cost to the U.S. taxpayer, to the
Wow.
homeowner, or to this jurisdiction. And so Grindstone has developed a network of about 200 companies and individuals across North America who support what we do.
Wow.
And we're very construction-y. And so in between tornadoes and hurricanes, we got the itch. We had to do something. And a place called Bethany House reached out to us, and they were a juvenile restoration facility. And that conversation started with one side of the building in one of our buildings has some floors that are a little wonky. Can you come take a look?
Huh.
6 weeks later, we had touched everything on that property. Power, sewer, water, HVAC, roofing, fencing, flooring, drywall, at everything.
Wow.
Just because it literally, when we needed something, a random person would be driving down the road, stop and go, "Oh, I got that on the truck," and just hand it to us. Just 6 weeks of miracles, bro. So the second to last day, I'm walking out of the building that we were using as a dormitory. It was a beautiful morning, blue skies, little white fluffy clouds. And I was just talking to the father and I said, man, this is so cool what you're doing here. He's like, yeah, it is. And I was like, yeah, we gotta do more of this. We need to have more of these restoration facilities for these kids.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, you're gonna build them. And then, like, the record stopped. And it's like, hold on a sec, homie.
What?
Whoa. I can build them. I know how to build stuff, but I don't know anything about human trafficking, anti-human trafficking, restoration. And he said, you build it, I'll handle the rest.
Wow.
And I said, yes, sir. And so we founded Kaleb House, Kaleb with a K.org. And we started looking for land. We figured out where we were going to build another restoration facility. And then the process of getting all that figured out, long and short, we got a call that there were people who were in a very bad situation who needed to get out right now.
Okay.
So I filled that phone call. I sent out a text message to some of the guys that I know that are more tactically minded, prior law enforcement, prior military. I'm like, hey, we got to go do a thing. Several states away. They're like, cool, when we're leaving? 15 minutes. Awesome, I'm up.
Holy.
And so under the cover of darkness, we go in and we get 9 people out. And we don't have a restoration facility yet. So we establish a safe house. And then another safe house. And then another safe house. And we've been pulling people out by the dozens. People who have been trafficked.
Oh my gosh.
We staff these safe houses 24/7, 365. And I'm in the process of literally building the restoration facility. As we talk, there are concrete trucks on property right now, pouring the stem wall for a foundation on one of the care houses right now at Kaleb House. And so the vision here is, in the United States of America, trafficking is a $150 billion, with a B, billion dollar per year industry.
What the crap?
Yeah. And Americans are the prime offenders. Trafficking is, contrary to popular belief, trafficking means the exploitation of one human being by another human being. Okay. And so sometimes it's what is actually called human smuggling, which is kids in cages and trucks. And that happens.
My God.
You've seen it. But it's also oftentimes mom has a meth addiction and needs money, so she pimps out her 12-year-old to the uncle.
Oh, no.
Constantly. Or dad is a pedophile, and so he produces CSAM, child sexual abuse material, with his children to distribute to his other pedophile friends. It's disgusting, bro, and I hate it, and I never had any interest in getting involved in this until the father punched me in the forehead with it and said, you will do this. I require this of you. And I said, yes, sir. And so $150 billion per year industry. The agency at the federal level that has oversight on this is DHS, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. They have a $150 million per year budget. So they're already, a factor of 1,000, right? 150 billion in with 150 million to combat it.
Good Lord. And
that 150 million, 17,000 children per month go missing in the United States of America.
17,000?
17,000 per month. There are 420 beds in the United States for juvenile human trafficking survivors. 420.
That's not enough.
It's not enough, which is why we are building Kaleb House. For that budget with DHS, each one of those beds per annum works out to $357,000 per bed per year in budget. And DHS doesn't actually have the beds. They work with NGOs and nonprofits like us to provide the beds. Kaleb House, to build a Kaleb House facility, is build and OPEX, operational expenses, for year one is $117,000 per bed. Year two,
per bed?
Per bed. After year one, in year two, it's $17,000 per year per bed. So I can house 20 kids and restore 20 kids for DHS's one. And we can, all the details around that. My goal is to build restoration facilities because of that $150 million, 90% of it is spent on awareness. Raped kids bad. I'll make an Instagram post. 135 million of the 150 is spent on awareness.
Jeez.
10% is spent on rescue, which is good. We need rescue. We got to get these kids out of these bad situations. 0% is spent on restoration. 0%.
Wow.
And so our program has no timeline because I have children between the ages of 1 year old and 19 years old in my care right now.
Oh my gosh.
And if you want to be disgusted, the fastest growing trend in human trafficking is the abuse of nonverbal children because they cannot testify in court.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the way we have teams in the field that are operational at this very moment, the way I like to say it is we make sure that bad shit happens to bad people, and we then find the good people and we put them back together again. And so our program has no timeline because I'm not going to tell a 4-year-old he has a year to get his poop in a group before I kick him back out again.
Oh man.
And so we're building these care houses. It costs about $7 million from raw dirt to finished facility that will house 60 kids. And I'm building number 1 right now. I already know where I'm building number 2, and I will keep building these things till either I'm dead or we don't have to build them anymore because the problem has been solved.
Man. TJ, what a mission.
Bro, I wanted nothing to do with it when the Father first put it in front of my face.
I feel it. Yep.
And now
it's responsibility.
How do you say no to him?
Yep, you can't.
To that point, why did he keep me alive when I should have
Well,
been?
if you said no, he's going to find somebody else to do it and then be done with you.
Yep, 100%. So that's what we do, and that's Kaleb with a K, kalebhouse.org. And we take $0 from the government, 0, because if I have a federal or a state grant, I now need to adhere to their woke ideological BS.
So
TJ, I won't do that.
We can talk more out after we get done with the call. How can people get a hold of you to help donate, to give any kind of love, money?
Oh, I appreciate
whatever.
that. And to be absolutely clear, I'm not on here to pour my heart out. I know.
This is me. Money. This is me saying that. Like I know that people are going to listen to this and want to contribute.
So what I tell people is if the Spirit convicts you to participate in our mission, you can find us at kalebhouse.org, Kaleb with a K, kalebhouse.org, Kaleb. If it doesn't, that's okay too, because there's 1,000 other nonprofits out there that desperately need your help as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to shill for anybody. We're a 501c3 charitable organization. I take $0 from my participation in it. We do have an administrative staff, and we have field teams that we employ to be able to go and jam up bad people.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say we've done that dozens of times, made bad shit happen to bad people. And if you have any pointed questions, you can email admin@kalebhouse.org as well, and we'll get back to you with whatever's needed.
So TJ, how can people get in touch with you specifically?
Yeah. So I have that YouTube channel. It's Bear Independent, BEAR Independent. And then I'm the CEO of Refuge Medical and Kaleb House president of Grindstone. And I live in the woods in Oklahoma because I'm not really interested in a whole bunch of people finding me. So, but that's where you can get a hold of me and see what I've got going on. There's this whole concept of biblically the wandering in the wilderness, right? Man. To find yourself.
Yep. I'm reading a book about it right now.
Yep. Israelites went through it. Messiah went through it. And I really believe that's why the Father needed me to get out of North Texas so I could start to hear his voice again.
Ah, bro, that's beautiful.
Yep.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
I think we should just reiterate you're not an accident and your life has value and you were fearfully and wonderfully made by the Creator and he loves you and needs you.
Yeah.
And so don't do anything stupid. If you're hurting, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Please please just talk to somebody.
Yeah. TJ, thank you so much, man. You know what? This won't be the only time you're on this show. I'm going to have you again. You are one of the most powerful interviews that I've ever done in my entire life. Also, your humbleness, your heart, the way that God speaks through you, you're a model for a lot of us, or all of us, to step into our truth and to step into our purpose. And you gave people a lot of courage today to do that, I think, even though it's scary. And what I love about your story is that every time you said yes and you did the thing for God, God was like, okay, well, let's level it up a little bit here, right?
Yep.
But that's the way it works, right? You know, if you look at any of the prophets in the Bible, any of the people that have done some game-changing things in the world, it wasn't just that one thing that they did. A whole bunch of things led up to that bigger thing that they finally accomplished. And, TJ, just my intuition tells me that the facilities aren't going to be the biggest thing that you do in your life, bro. It's just a part of the journey. And I'm excited to keep in touch with you. And you guys, please reach out to TJ and his team. And but I just want to thank you for being you, TJ, and for listening to God, man.
I really appreciate you having me on your show. I thought it was a phenomenal opportunity to spend some time together. And dude, you've got a great heart. And
thanks, bro.
I think you're doing really good things. And I can feel it through this digital existence that we live nowadays. But I'm sure we're going to bump into each other in the meat world one day soon.
We have to. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. And we will talk to you next week.